Okay. So the tools what we are going to use here is the lex, lex or flex, and yak. So lex or flex we will use it for lexical analysis purpose or JLX, and yak will be used for parsing purpose. And the yak we will do it almost at the end of this, by the end of this course. And we have a lab for this particular subject. So in lab, initially we will start with simple programs, and then we will go with lex, and at the end we will go with yak.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, these tools that ma'am mentioned and you mentioned right now, in what language are they written in, ma'am? Lex, Flex, and Yak, all these like.
Lex, it's written using C program itself.
I'm like, Lex is for C, and how can you write it in C, ma'am? Like that's the question that I had.
Okay, okay. You are asking like how do we write it? Okay.
How
See
is that?
here. Yeah, this Lex and Yak, whatever we are saying, it is nothing but Lex will be accepting the regular expressions. So you will be giving the regular expressions. So it has its own syntax. So that has to be followed.
Okay, that's a different language. Like Lex works like a different.
It's something. It's a C program itself, but inside that the syntax it's a C program itself. But the contents what you give is regular expression will be given along with your simple C, that is like declaration of variables. All those things are C syntax itself.
But the question I'm asking is like we are designing like, whatever we are going to see is basically for C compiler, no, ma'am. We're trying to design the C compiler using the
Hmm.
Lex, which is used in the lexical analyzer, the initial part. Now,
Hmm.
how can a tool that is written in C
Hmm.
work for a C compiler? Like how did the compiler work for that tool then? Like you're getting the
Yeah.
question, ma'am.
Yes, yes, I understood your question. So you
Uh,
are basically see what this lexical analysis done is it captures each and every word whatever you transfer. That is in your file if you are having hash include angle brackets stdio.h. So that means it tries to capture each and every word from it and tries to identify what exactly it is. Are you understanding? Like say for example, int a if you are saying. So it takes this int and it maps it to keyword. A it maps it to identifier. So
okay,
that
ma'am.
means
Like,
this lexical analysis is a lexical analyzer is going to just work like a mapping, just trying to understand what exactly you have passed.
ma'am, so in what language is that tool written? Like that analyzer tool, in what language is it written? Is it in C only?
That is in C only.
Okay, ma'am. I'll ask in the end of the class.
Okay. So here for lexical analysis, we will be using this regular expressions. So remember regular expressions like say for example variables. If you want, you have to identify your variables. So how we will write the regular expression for variables? Say you can accept the starting character can be any small letter characters A to Z or capital A to Z or underscore. So you will have your regular expression written for A to Z, capital A to Z, underscore. That is the starting character which you can accept, followed by any number of any characters. So it will be A to Z, capital A to Z, any numbers. So 0 to 9, whole star. So star closure comes. So if your word, whatever you are going to, whatever it has been recognized, if it satisfies this particular regular expression, then you can tag it to be as variable. If suppose if the word identified is say plus, plus is one word which you have identified, so that you can tag it to be as you will never find say more than two pluses coming together. I mean like plus plus. It's like an increment operator, right? You will not find three pluses coming together, right? So you don't have to give any star closure, positive closure. Those things are not required. So if you identify any operator, that is plus comes into picture or multiplication comes, so you will map it to an operator. That term, that plus will be mapped to a token or a term called operator. So that's why this lexical analyzer, we call it to be as understanding the tokens. That is, it will be identifying each word and it tokens. Each word, what we call it to be as token, will be analyzed and mapped to a particular word according to your program. Okay, anyways, we will see in lab these tools, but not right now. Right now, we will just do with respect to the TOC, whatever you have done, we have learned. That is like positive closure, star closure, concatenation, all those things we will implement. Only by the time we will finish scanner part in the theory portion, then we will start by the, that time in lab also. When we complete these 2 labs, in 3rd lab we can start with Lex programs. Okay. I think ma'am has covered till here, right? Backend. So backend, which is nothing but whatever intermediate representation you are having, the code which you have converted, that will be converted to machine code. That is in your binaries. So directly it will not be converted. So if you are able to write an assembly program, map it to that is your source program, map to an assembly program, then assembly program can be converted to binary code. So that you already know that. So we will make map your entire source program till assembly program. Okay, so that is what it will be done. So in the backend portion, what it happens is once you identify, that is once it is getting converted, you should be worrying about how many registers are required, as well as that is how many instructions you will be having it. How do you manage the memory part? So these are the 3 things which you will be taking care of. How better way you can optimize it so that you will use less number of registers or less number of instructions to execute. So that is what is happening at the back end. So same thing, whatever has been covered here, we will just take one example and just discuss. Okay, so if you see for this particular example, say you are having your expression result equals a plus b multiplied by within bracket c divided by d. Okay, so when you are having some expression, something like this, as a human, we know that the operators, whichever is mentioned within parenthesis, that is the one which it has to execute. After that, the higher priority goes for multiplication, division. After that, for plus, minus. Remaining operators, it is there. Right now, we are seeing only for arithmetic operators. So I just mentioned for arithmetic operators. Okay. So our first step is, that means if this is what you are going to convert to a machine code, how it will be done. So that is what we are going to see for this class. Okay. So our first phase is this program will be passing through your lexical analysis, right? So in the lexical analysis, or we can call it to be a scanning phase. So we have to identify each and every token. So if you see here, we are going to have, so we have each and every content, say like variable. So say pick each and every word. So result is a word, equal to is a word, a is a word, plus b multiplication, parenthesis, c open parenthesis followed by c division, it's an operator, d it's a variable, closing parenthesis. So that means in the first phase we are going to identify each and every token. So all these things, that is entire this result A, B, C and D will be under the token identifier. So it will be recognized. So we can write it to be as, it will be considered each word. Once it identifies each and every word, it will be mentioned to be as, say for example, A is the word which you are having, A, which is identified to be as identifier. So in short, if I write it to be as, this is how I have mentioned in the in my compiler. So this is how it will be represented. So A is recognized to be as an identifier. In short, I have written ID. Next, it is having plus. So plus is a content which I have recognized. So which is mapped to be as an operator. So OP. So like this, for each and every word will be, each and every token will be recognized. So that is what is happening in the lexical analysis phase. So for doing this phase, that is for identifying each and every content, so we will be using the regular expressions over here. What you have learned in TOC. So regular expressions will be used here for understanding, that is for identifying each and every token. Okay. So once each and every token has been recognized, something like this. Say if you write for entire this expression, how it will be written? It will be written to be as with an angle bracket, just for understanding, result which is a variable. So result which is recognized to be as ID, identifier. So like this, each and every word will be, each and every token will be recognized. Similarly, after that, equal to, which is an operator. After that, A, identifier, plus, which is an operator. B, it's an identifier. Multiplication operator. This open parenthesis, it's that comes under parenthesis part. That is not an operator, that comes under brackets, that is parenthesis. Then C, which is again identifier. D, which is slash, which is an operator. D, which is again an identifier. Again closing parenthesis, that comes under parenthesis part. Okay, so like this, whatever content, whatever contents you are giving in your programming, each and every words would be recognized. So now we will not say it to be as words, we will say it to be as tokens. Okay, so that is what will be done in the first phase. Once you recognize each and every word, what is the second phase? What we are going to have is, we have to identify whether the syntax has been followed or not. So when you are making it to be a syntax analysis, or we can call it to be as parsing. So here we will be having the grammars what we have written. Remember the grammars, say for example, for the same expressions we have written here. So expression equals to expression plus expression, or we can write it to be as expression minus expression, or it could be mentioned to be as expression multiplied by another expression. So all these things has been mentioned. So for equal to operator, assign, which is ID equals expression. The last one is identifier ID, which is considered to be as A, B, C, D or result. So all these are considered to be as identifier. So this is the rule which you have given. So using this rule, we will construct this tree, right? So now, why do we have to tokenize? So what is the purpose of tokenizing? Because when you reach to the second phase, in the parsing phase, what happens in the parsing phase, you will not write with respect to each and every variables, right? You will be you will write it with respect to the general terms you will be writing. Say for example, you if you remember expression we will not write it to be as expression as such, right? Expression can be any sub expressions also can come into picture. So we have to identify, we will not from once you finish your lexical analysis phase, from there onwards you are identifying each and every token. Once the token is identified, your grammar also will be written based on that tokens itself. That is the reason why you are first phase itself you are trying to convert to each and every that is each and every token, you are trying to identify each and every tokens. Okay, once those tokens are identified.
Ma'am, can you give some examples for lexical errors, ma'am?
That is what is given here, right? Result equals A plus B multiplied by C divided by D. Error,
ma'am.
Error in the sense, okay, say for example, if your variable, say identification of variables. So how do we identify the variables? Say according to your rule, it should start with a character followed by any number of characters. You should not have any numbers, or it should not have any special characters. This is the rule which you are having for identifying the variables. Okay, so now if I give a variable to be as 1 R, or say A1. Will it accept?
A1 will get accepted, ma'am. 1 or it won't.
No, because according to my rule, what it says, the variables should be having only characters, small letters or capital letters. It should not have any digits, or it should not have any special characters. But according to the variable name, what we have given, it says like A1, A followed by 1. Here you have a digit, right? So that should not be allowed. So here in this case, it will generate an error message in the lexical phase itself. So
this
when
is
you
also
encounter
syntax, but in a which is particular to a reduced to a token level, like variable
token level. Yeah, once you find an error in the first phase itself, does it have to proceed to the next phases? It doesn't have to, right? It will stop at that point itself.
Fine, ma'am. Fine.
Okay. So first it identifies about because if it is not able to recognize the each and every word, there is no point of proceeding to your parsing phase, because each and every grammar will be generalized and written, right? It won't be specific. It will be in a general terms. So that is the reason why first you are scanning, understanding each and every tokens, and then you reach to your parsing phase. So in the parsing phase, what you are doing, you are just checking whether you are following all the syntax or not. That is whether your expression, whatever you have written, is it according to the rule what you have specified. So now if you see here, this is according to the rule what you have specified. So it will be allowed to move to the next phase. Okay. So is it sufficient for just understanding whether the syntax is correct or not? Is that part sufficient for us? Variables we have given correctly. Expression we have written, say for example, sum is equal to a plus b we have written. According to the syntax, it is correct. Is these two things, is it sufficient for us to go and convert to assembly code? Can someone try?
No,
For the
ma'am,
same expression.
the data type compatibility should be met.
Data type compatibility also should be verified. So that means we should know if you are saying sum is equal to a plus b or a multiplied by b, when you are saying whether your a and b, whether it is of integer type or is it of real type. If it is of string type, it should show an error message. So in this parsing phase, will it do? It doesn't do that part. So in parsing phase, what it does is it just checks whether it is according to the syntax or not, whether it is according to the rule what you have specified in the grammar or not. Where you are going to check for the type, that is type checking, where it happens is in the semantic analysis. So in the semantic analysis, what it does is whatever it is identified according to your grammar, it will check whether the type is also correct. Whatever's recognized type only can be accepted or not. So that will be done in the semantic analysis phase. So once you are once you identify with respect to the semantic analysis phase, it generates the syntax, that is we call it to be as abstract syntax tree. We will see the difference between abstract syntax tree and the parsing tree once we reach over there. Okay, so right now this much you understand. Okay, so that is with respect to your first phase, that is scanning phase, which we call it to be as lexical analysis. The second phase, which we call it to be as parsing phase. So identified each tokens, then we have verified whether it is according to the syntax, then we have verified whether it is according to the type or not. So type checking is also done. So till here everything is correct, then it will move to the next phase. So what is our next phase? It will start slowly converting to our assembly code. So for it can't directly go and convert it, right? So for that also it has a step-by-step process. So it will slowly convert to we call it to be as intermediate representation. So here we will just by using this temporary variables, we just convert that entire expression into small pieces. So it can be that is because your assembly code, whatever we are going to write, it will be of 2 operands. Remember, based on your 8086 or ARM architecture. So it can't directly take. So that's why I'm saying it is slowly making it to reach to your assembly code. So for that purpose, this representation, where it will take two operators, two variables will be taken based on the operator, and it will be doing the operation and stores it in a temporary variable. So here we are just making use of that is 4 temporary variables, that is T1, T2, T3, T4, and accordingly the expression is getting solved. So first we have to, since the parenthesis having the higher priority, higher precedence, so first it does the division operator. So T1, and it is getting stored in T1, and that T1 is used for multiplication operator and storing the result, multiplying it with B and storing the result in T2. And then that value T2 is getting added with variable A, content of A, and it will be stored in T3. After that, that content T3 is getting stored in T4, and the value of T4 will be stored in the variable results, or directly you can store T3 into result. Either of the ways it is fine. Okay, so this intermediate representation. Why this intermediate representation? This is one way of representing. That is, before you convert to your assembly code, in this way, that is a sequential way of representation can be done. Otherwise, we can even represent it in a graphical way. When we use graphical representation is, especially when we go with this functions and all. So when we use functions and all, we can call functions from any place. So for mapping it, it will be easy for us if you represent in the graphical format than this way. Okay, so when we say intermediate representation, we have 2 ways of representation. We can either go with graphical representation, or we can represent it in the sequential way of what I have shown it on the screen. So like this also we can represent. So when we use this is, if whenever we have a sequential operations one after the other, like how these expressions and all, when we have this way of representation would be easy. When we are having functions, structures, all those things comes into picture, at that point of time, graphical representation would be better. So that mapping and all will be easy for us to represent. And within that each node, we can have this format, intermediate representation. Intermediate representation for each language, whatever they use, it keeps varying. It depends which way they wanted to have. Okay. So in this course, we will just discuss about what do we call by 2 address code, what is this 3 address code, what is the disadvantage, all those things we will just discuss in this intermediate representation part. Okay. So our front end portion is done. The source program is right now from the front end. It has been given in the intermediate representation form, either graphical way or this way, or combination of it. So either of it, it will be given as the output. So front end's output is our intermediate representation. So once we finish with this front end portion, we have to go for this optimization. Why do we need to go for this optimization? What should be the benefit of it? Last class, some of you were asking with respect to sorting algorithms and all. Okay, that same example, whatever I have written, that is result equals a plus b multiplied by c divided by d. That I have written it in this way. If you see, hope all of you could see it, right? So some value for b has been assigned, some value for c has been assigned, a has been assigned with value 1. We are having a for loop running where we have I assigned with 1, and it runs for n times. Inside, I am asking for the value of d, and this expression is getting solved. Okay, instead of division, I have given multiplication, or ignore this. So for this expression, a multiplied by 2 multiplied by B multiplied by C multiplied by D. Is there anything which you can find in this given source program? Can we optimize it in any way? Optimization means where we can either where we try to reduce the number of steps.
Read can be before the for loop.
Read can be before the for loop. But my requirement is based on each iteration, I want the D value to be taken from user, and based on that D value, that operation should work.
2A into BC
2 into BC can be stored somewhere,
stored as a
instead of
single
computing
variable.
every time.
Stored as a different one. So that means inside the loop, it is not necessary that A into A, that is 2 into A into B into C should be done. Sorry, A is required because it keeps iterating. So 2 into B into C is not required inside the loop. If you do it outside also, the value remains same, right? So that means if you go with this particular loop, what happens? This loop works for n times. In general, we will say it as this loop works for n times. Remaining all we will say it to be as constant times. So constant is getting ignored. All those things you know, right? But now when we take in terms of multiplication operator, how many times it is getting called? Inside the loop, we are calling the multiplication operator for 4 times, right? So we are calling this, when you say in terms of n, multiplication operator is getting called for 4n times, right? So now if I rewrite this, if you bring this 2 into B into C outside, that means 2 multiplication operators, you are bringing it outside. Okay. So that means within the loop, it will be only 2n times. So now if you see here, we have, sorry. Within the loop, we have only 2 multiplication operators which we are having. So for n times when we are running, it will be only 2n. And 2n, and here outside we brought this 2 multiplications outside. So we can say that this will be 2n plus 2. Whereas here it will be 4n. So which one will be better? 4n or 2n plus 2?
2n plus 2.
Obviously it will be 2n plus 2. And 2, it's a constant. We can ignore it. So in general, when we say, it will be 4n and 2n. Okay. So better one, the number of the number of times the multiplication operator getting called will be only 2n times. Similarly, if you take it, yeah.
That 2n plus 2, one constant is because of storing 2BC, and then the T, and then another operation, what is it, ma'am?
I didn't get you. I just wrote this 2n plus 2 with respect to multiplication operator. How many times this multiplication operator is
yes,
getting?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Understood. Thank you.
That is with respect to multiplication operator. Similarly, now if you see within the loop, if you are trying to call each and every time the B and C value, which is not getting changed, that remains a constant, whether you call it outside or inside. So how many times you have to access the memory location? So that also depends, right? So all these things is the one which we take care in the optimization part. So in optimization, the loop will not be changed. The contents, that means like the loop portion, the entire code will not be changed. Instead, what is getting changed is how better way we can do it. How we can save the time as well as the steps part. Time in the sense, the step itself.
Ma'am? Ma'am, before this optimization part, in which stage the exceptions are handled, ma'am? Like B is equal to 2 by 0, but there is no lexical error, there is no semantic, and yeah, there is no syntax error also. So in which stage it is handled?
Exceptions. Exceptions will be only at the end portion. That is once you reach to your assembly program part. There only you will just recognize the values. Till now you are not recognizing the values. This is compilation, right? You are just converting it.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Only once you finish converting, you have your machine code. Only during runtime it will understand. That is only at the last portion, right? That is in the assembly program part.
Okay, ma'am. Yeah.
Are you able to this whatever right now whatever we are discussing, we are not discussing in terms of runtime, right? We are discussing in terms of compilation time.
Okay.
Compilation, we are not executing anything.
In terms of value. So.
We are not doing anything with respect to value.
Okay.
We are just
Understood.
keeping everything ready for runtime. Keeping the things something for ready for your runtime part.
Got it.
Okay. Okay. So for optimization part, what do we have to do is we just have to understand how your structure, that is how your program has been written. So that means we should know the flow of data, how the data has been, that is when and all your data is getting modified. The data flow analysis, which is nothing but at which locations and all your values are getting modified. So based on that, you can take a decision like whether it has to be put outside the loop, inside the loop, all those things can be decided. Similarly, the dependency. So data flow means which is nothing but which variable is depending on what, that is if you are having loop and all, is there any dependency? Say for example, in this case, there is a dependency with respect to A variable as well as D variable, but there is no dependency with respect to B and C. So all those things has to be analyzed. So based on this analysis, you will be optimizing it. And this optimization can also, that is each phase, you can have n number of optimizations. So that also for based on your compiler, you can decide how many steps you should have, how many phases you have to have for this optimization. In each phase, what are the things which you are going to take care, that can be decided. And you can have those many optimizations. That's why if you remember this figure, what we have shown, front end, then optimizer. In the optimizer, you could have seen like optimizer 1, optimizer 2, so on up to optimizer n. So that means you can, in each optimization step, you can decide what you are going to take care of. Okay. So once we have finished with this, reaching to the backend part. Okay. So once we reach to the backend part, here, what is the thing which you're, okay. What we do here is we decide in the backend portion. Now what we are having, we have already made sure that there is no errors. We have made sure the type checking is also done properly. And now we are having somewhat optimized program, that is the intermediate representation form. That is, we are having right now the program in the optimized this expression in the intermediate form itself. Okay. Now in backend portion, what is going to be taken care is the registers requirement. That is, when we are converting to an assembly program, we make use of registers, right? So how many contents should be stored in registers? And all of us know that we for each machine has very less number of registers. So we have to use it in an optimum way. Otherwise, it will be simply used up. Similarly, the memory. When and all we have to take the contents from memory. Is it sufficient if we can frequently used variables means we can store it in register? If it is once in a while, if you are calling, we can take it from a memory. So all these decisions will be taken in the backend part. So for this example, same example, that is result equals a plus b multiplied by, that is the expression whatever I have given in the previous step. So first step in the backend, what we are going to take up is instruction selection. So based on this instruction selection, And the backend is the place where you are going to have your assembly program. Okay. So based on this, your intermediate represented code will be converted to the assembly program. So instructions. So right now, directly they have written this instructions. So first, what we had is result equals a multiplied by a plus b. So a multiplied by 2. What was the expression? A multiplied by 2 multiplied by b multiplied by c multiplied by d. So that was the expression. If that was the expression taken, so what we do is we are going to have it. Sorry, division should have come. I'll change this intermediate representation form. I'll make it to be as for the same expression whatever has been written. That is a multiplied by 2 multiplied by b multiplied by c multiplied by d. This I'll just change it to that particular one. Right now it is not correct. Okay. So you can imagine what would be the intermediate representation form when if your given expression is a multiplied by 2 multiplied by b multiplied by c multiplied by d. So first what we have done is we have taken the contents from the memory for that particular variable a and stored it in the register RA. So now if you are saying it to be as RARP, which is nothing but it is considered to be as this RARP, which is considered to be as the starting address location. In the memory, you will have some location allocated for storing the contents. So starting address location, that is you are taking the content from the starting address location at where your variable A is at. So variable A's value would be taken and stored it in the register RA. And you are loading the next instruction where you are loading the value 2. The constant 2 has been loaded into the register R2, named to be as register R2. Next, you are loading the content that is from starting address location, which is represented to be as RARP to that is the B variable, wherever the B variable is, that particular value has been taken from memory and kept in the register RB. So like that, the C variable has been taken, D variable has been taken from memory and stored it in the register RC and RD. After loading the contents, only then there's the multiplication instruction has come into picture. So multiplying RA with R2, so which is nothing but if you see the right hand side, the steps has been given. What exactly has been done? So A is getting multiplied by 2 and getting stored in the register RA. Next, you're multiplying the contents RA with the RB and storing the result in RA. Next, the result, whatever previous step, whatever result you are having, that is getting multiplied with RC and the result is getting stored in RA. So like this, at the end, whatever result you are having in RA register, that is getting stored in the memory location of A. So that is the reason why if you see here, store AI RA value, which is getting stored in the starting address location of your memory to the location of A. So in this particular representation, you don't have to by heart this representation. This is just for your understanding how they have written it. Okay. So multiplying and then storing the contents into the location, writing it back to your A variable's location. So our first step is converting your operation, that is your operation is getting converted, that is the intermediate representation is getting converted based on the instructions. What are the instructions which were supposed to be used for it? Okay, so once you identify all the instructions, next step what we can do, we can start optimizing it. So how we can optimize it? So first step, how we can optimize is, we can optimize it with respect to registers. So that means if you see in the previous step, how many registers we have used? RA, R2, RB, RC, RD. So that means 5 registers we have used. Can we reduce, instead of 5 registers, can we reduce it? So that is what has been done in the second step. So for reducing purpose, when we are saying, when we are trying to reduce the number of registers, what will happen? We have to reorder the instructions, but the final result should be correct, but it could be reordered. So when we are reordering, if you see here, the same expression, first we are taking the contents of register A and storing it in R1. And then instead of using this multiplication operator, what we could do? We could directly add R1. Why we have done something like this? Because when you are loading an immediate value into a register, when you compare load instruction with add instruction, which one would take more cycles? You remember in embedded system and COA you would have done this. Load will take more cycles, right, when compared with other multiplication operators. So instead of that, what we could do is, when you have a wherever we can use simple operators, that could be modified. So add R1 comma R1 will be done, and that result is getting stored in R1. Next, you are taking the contents of RB and putting it in R2 register, and then multiplying and storing the result in R1. After that, we don't require B variable, so we can modify the register R2's value with C value. So that's why in the fifth instruction, if you see, load RARP, that is starting address of your memory, take the contents of the C variables content and load it into register R2. Then multiply, store the result in R1. After that, we are taking the content of D register and putting it in R2, because we don't require the same C variable further. So we have modified the R2 register value with D, multiplied, store the result in R1. After that, the final result, which is there in R1, will be loaded into the memory location A. So we have used the instruction to be as store AI. AI is nothing but arithmetic immediate. R1 register value to memory location. Okay, now if you see here, we are going to have 2 registers used. When compared with previous one, we have used 5 registers. So we now which one would be better? 2 registers with 5 registers. 2 would be better. But now what happens? Now if you see, we are having multiplication operators and load instructions coming alternatively, right? Now we can once again can you mute yourself? Put. Okay. So once we understood that we can reduce the number of registers, now we trying to see the with respect to the cycles, whether the instruction scheduling can be reduced or not. That is, the number of time could be reduced or not. So we have to rearrange, reorder your instructions once again and see the number of cycles, what it is going to take. So number of cycles, when you are saying, if you are assuming, I have given in the right side on top. If you assume the load and store is going to take 3 cycles, multiply is going to take 2 cycles, and all other operations are going to take 1 cycle. Okay, keeping that the same order, if you take it up, we have mentioned start and end cycle. Okay, so the first instruction is starting at 1. It's a load instruction, so it takes 3 cycles. So 1, 2, 3. It ends at the 3rd cycle. Only after it finishes in the 3rd cycle, the next instruction starts at the next cycle. So in the 4th cycle, you are having add instruction. So which takes 1 cycle to finish. So at the beginning of 4th cycle it starts. By the end of 4th cycle, it will be finished. Next instruction, which is load instruction. Again, it is going to take 3 cycles. So 5th, 6th, 7th. So 3 cycles, load instruction. By the end of 7th cycle, load instruction will be over. The next instruction starts at 8th. So like this, multiplication takes 2 cycles. So 8, 9. So 9 cycle, it will be finished. So like that, one after the other, when it completes, it requires 22 cycles to complete this entire, to finish one expression, it requires 22 cycles. Okay. So now, once again, is there any other way to improve this? Can you reduce this number of cycles if you arrange it in some other way?
Pipelining method, ma'am.
Pipelining method.
Yeah, we can improve the number of cycles. This is
we
one
can
after the other. One after
this is
the
one
other.
after the other. Why we have to finish till fourth cycle is getting over? Because there is a dependency, right? Only after you finish R1's value, that is
No, ma'am.
in fourth
Even if
cycle, as
there
you
is
said.
dependency.
As you said, in fourth cycle itself, the load instruction also could start. Then pipelining, if you do, the number of cycles would be little less. That is what your point was, right? But
Yes,
later on, when you see, the cycles will come back to same position. Only at add instruction you have that that point. Otherwise, rest all there is a dependency.
no, ma'am. Even if there is dependency, we can stall some cycles. So only some cycles would be wasted. So if we are doing for all the instructions, at least a few percentage of in cycles will be reduced, ma'am, in pipelining concept.
But still it will be near, that is like 22 cycles only. That it will be more,
Since
either
here
more
there
than
is
or
majority is load instructions, there is not much difference, ma'am. But generally, if you take means, pipelining will have the less number of cycles.
pipelining. If you bring the pipelining concept, but here what is the problem here is pipelining. Why you are not able to bring it here? Because you are trying to reload the memory content into R2 register. That is the B value also you are trying to load into R2 register. C value also you are trying to load into R2 register. Similarly, D also you are trying to load into R2 register. Because of that reason, you are not able to have this pipelining fully. That is, you can't fully bring that into your pipelining concept. So if you try to make use of little more registers, whatever you said, if you, instead of putting it into the same R2 variable, that is R2 register, if you try to have another register also, and if I reorder it something like this, the load instructions, the first 3 load instructions are brought together. Now what happens? As you said, the pipelining concept, in the first cycle, I'm starting for the first load instruction, it takes 3 cycles. So at the second cycle onwards, I can start the next load instruction, right? So next load instruction takes 3 cycles. So second load instruction will be completed by fourth cycle. The third load instruction I can start from the third cycle onwards. By the end of fifth cycle, I can finish my third load. That is, the third load instruction can be finished by the fifth cycle, right? And I had this add instruction. Add instruction, I can do it at the add instruction, I can do it by the end of this third cycle, right? So R1 register I am going to use in the add instruction. So add instruction, I'm having R1 comma R1. So that I can do it at the fourth cycle. Similarly, the next instruction, that is the fifth instruction, multiply R1 comma R2. So that means I need complete R1 value as well as R2 value. So that means only after fourth cycle I will be having my R1 value. Similarly, only after fourth cycle this R2 register is also ready with the value. So that means from fifth cycle I can implement this multiply instruction. After that, when you come back, R1 will be ready by sixth cycle. R2. So loading instruction, I can start from the sixth cycle. I can load it into the next register, that is R2. Because by the time I have used this R2 register. After that, multiply again 2 more multiplies. So multiply R1 with R3. So R3, which was ready by 5th cycle, by the end of 5th cycle, I can use this R3 value. R1 is ready by 6th cycle. So from 7th cycle, I can have this R1 getting executed. Similarly, the next multiply instruction, which takes 2 cycles, R1 will be ready with after the 8th cycle. So 9th cycle onwards, I can start with by next instruction, multiply, and store, which takes 3 cycles again. So starting from 11, 12, 13 for applied for store instruction. So I can store R1 value into A into the address location of A. So now that means the number of cycles are reduced very much. Previously it was 22 cycles, now it has reached to 13 cycles. If I have done slight modification in the ordering, as well as if you see, but there is a small change, I had to have more number of registers used. Okay, but the number of cycles have come to has reduced. So the point is, if you are trying to optimize it, in some places, some 3 registers if you use, it is better, but the number of cycles have drastically come down. Previously, the number of cycles was more, but you had only 2 registers. So you have to take a decision based on which one you have to, that is how, in which machine you are executing. Based on that, you can take up a decision whether you want to compromise towards the registers part or whether you want to compromise towards the cycles part. So thank you, students. I think I have taken 5 minutes extra. So I've done with the class. Next class we'll start with scanners. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am,
Thank you.